good Erev Shabbos and a good Erev Rosh Hashanah. I'm going to share some brief remarks as we go into Rosh Hashanah. There's a very disturbing Torah reading that we read the first day of Rosh Hashanah. Disturbing Torah reading about the paragon of kindness, the Amod HaChesed, the patriarch Abraham, the man of the open tent, the man that feeds the stranger, that he'll do anything to give a hot meal to anybody that needs it. Achnasas Orchem was his trademark, hospitality at no costs. Beginning of Parshas Vayera tells us about his trademark hospitality. When he was ill and infirmed, he ran and he pursued three strange people. He invited them in and he gave them delicacies, pastries, breads, and beef, and tongue, and all sorts of delicacies, and treated them like royalty. And yet, he takes his own son later on in the portion, which we read on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, his own flesh and blood, Yishmael, after he gets into some disagreement with his other son, his half-brother, Yitzchak, and he sends him away with a pathetic portion of bread and a flask of water in the desert, essentially to die. And he does so because that's what God tells him to do. Vayomer Elohim el Avraham al yera beinecha l'nar ba'al mosecha kol asher tomer elecha sar shma b'kola. Don't worry about the young man and about his mother. Listen to Sarah, your wife, and send them away. This was the kindest person on earth. It was like shoving a dagger into his heart, sending away this young child. Yashkem Avram Baboker, Abraham wakes up in the morning. He takes a loaf of bread and a flask of water. Vayitin al Hagar, he gives it to Hagar. Sam al Shechma, he places it on her shoulder. Vesayel it on the child. Vayishalcha, he sends them away. Vatelach vatesa b'midbar Beersheba, travels in the desert to Beersheba. Yichlu amayim menachemes. The water, as anybody would expect, disappears from the flask no short time. The child dehydrates. The mother can't bear to see the child dehydrating, dying in front of her eyes in the brutal heat of the desert. The mother distances herself from the child. Harchek k'metachvei keshes. I cannot see my child die. The mother begins to cry as she's watching her child die in front of her eyes. Then God hears the voice of the child, and then the angel of God calls to Hagar from heaven, And the angel says to Hagar from heaven, Altiri, do not be afraid. Ki shama Elohim el kol hanar. Because God has heard the voice of the lad Basher Husham, where he is now. Quite a heartbreaking story with a rather happy ending. The child survives to see another day. The reason why this is read on the first day of Rosh Hashanah is somewhat of a mystery. There doesn't seem to be any theme that connects it to the subject at hand. There's a fascinating story behind the scenes that the Talmud takes us to, the tractate of Rosh Hashanah. I have to remember who the young man was, the young child was Ishmael, the father of the Arab nations. And the Talmud focuses on the words Basher Husham. Verse in the Bible tells us that God heard him where he was. God heard him Basher Husham where he was. The Talmud interprets that he was judged where he was. The low and not so it's not what he was eventually going to do. Because the angels in the heavenly tribunals were prosecuting and advocating against the survival of Yishmael, and they were saying, Ribono shel olam, O Master of the world, Misha tid zaro lahamid banecha batzama tamalo ba'er. The one whose descendants, Yishmael, who are going to cause so much pain, suffering, tragedy, and death to your own children, the Jewish people, you are going to give a lifeline to. And God responded to the angels at that moment. Achshav mahu. At this very moment, what is Yishmael? Tzaddik or Rasha? Is he righteous or is he wicked? Amru lo, they said, Tzaddik, he is righteous. Amar lahem, so God said, L'fi ma'aseh shel achshav ani danu. I'm going to judge him according to the way he is now. And that's what it means by Asher Husham, in his current state. The rabbis teach us that's why we read this parsha on Rosh Hashanah. Because in Rosh Hashanah, we all go through judgment. Rosh Hashanah, we try to act our best. We try to stand in front of God in judgment and say, God, this year is going to be different. This year we want to seek a better path. This year we want to emulate better ways. This year we want to go down a better path and want to study more Torah, and our prayers are going to be different, and give more charity, and be kinder, and practice more chesed, and so on and so forth. And we all know that that may not be sustainable. But what we see from this passage is that God judges a person on Rosh Hashanah ba'asher husham, just like Yishmael was, l'fi ma'aseh shehu, l'fi shehu sham, where he is at that very moment. So let us reflect on this. Let us have some introspection. Let us not be discouraged and say, what does it matter how what kind of thoughts to embrace in Rosh Hashanah? What kind of positive thoughts to embrace in Rosh Hashanah? Is it sustainable? Obviously, it's not. It's counterproductive to embrace thoughts which are completely unrealistic. But let's try to embrace thoughts of self-improvement, even if we may slip up during the year, but just for the undertaking of the embrace of the willingness to study more Torah and be more committed to prayer and more committed to charity, God will judge us more favorably, because the way we approach our avodas Hashem and Rosh Hashanah, that's what's most important, as we see from this passage. So, my friends, Rosh Hashanah is extremely important. The Day of Judgment. We say, who shall live and who shall die? It's not just who just shall live and who shall die. It's mi bekitzo, mi lo bekitzo. Who will pass away in his time? Who will pass away before his time? Sometimes, for whatever reason, we don't merit to pass away in our original allotted time in this world. Bima magefa, who will pass away because of a plague, a pandemic. We all saw that this year. We have never in our lifetime experienced a pandemic as we have this year. Never been so in touch with our mortality as we have this year. You've never been felt so vulnerable with life as we have this year. So let us go towards Rosh Hashanah, plead for our lives like never before. And Rabbanu Shalom surely will answer us favorably. As we say, Zacharenu l'chaim, remember us for life. We all merit a year of Chaim Tovim, good life, a year of Gula, of Yeshua, of redemption and salvation. A good Yontiv and a good Shabbos and a good year.